Okay, hello everybody. This is Gretchen Wegner, and I am so excited to be with you all today. We are on a Google Hangout, and I just made us live, so I'm going to wait just a little bit to allow you guys to show up, and then we will begin. So while we're waiting to begin, if there are some of you here right now, I'd like to encourage you to take a look over on the right-hand side of the screen, and you can just get to know the space in the webinar a little bit. You'll see that there's a chat. You'll also see that there's a place for polls, and I have a question that I'll be explaining a little bit later, but you can even try and answer it on the poll now if you like. So just look around, and we're going to begin in about 20 seconds or so. Awesome. I see that folks are starting to come in. Hello, viewers. I'm excited to see you. Come on in. Okay. I also want to name, before we start, that because this is a Google Hangout, there might be a tiny little bit of a lag between what I'm saying and when you hear it. So if you notice that there's a slight difference between anything that you might say in the chat and my response to it, don't worry about that. We'll just kind of go with the flow. All right, yay. Oh, I see a bunch of you in now. So hello, I am Gretchen Wegner, and I am so inspired by the response that I got to this webinar, How to Inspire Teens to Study Effectively Without Fights and Nagging. Clearly, this is a topic that's near and dear to many parents' hearts, and probably to many tweens and teens' hearts as well. So I'm just so excited to be sharing with you some helpful nuggets today. I also just feel really honored to be able to help overwhelmed students and their families have their best school year ever. I never dreamed that being an academic coach was a thing, was a job, and now that I've landed on it, it is just such a pleasure watching students and their parents go from like tearing their hair out to actually feeling calm and relaxed and confident at school. So I hope that some of what I share with you today will help you create that in your families as well. I'm going to be walking you through my system that I've devised over the years of coaching for helping kids study powerfully. And as I mentioned in some of the previous emails, I'm now calling this the anti-boring approach to powerful studying. And I think you'll understand why I call it this by the end of our time today. So here are the two types of students that I find benefit the most from the system. Type 1 is the stressed out student who feels like they have no life at all outside of school. The second type is this kind of bored student. You start strong, but then as the school year goes on, motivation goes down and procrastination goes up. Now there is a third kind of student who really needs this work, but often is not ready for it. And that's the student who is just super, super bright on it, doesn't have to study, is just flying through middle school and high school with great grades, and then crashes and burns in college because they actually haven't learned how to study. So that student often learns so quickly when they come to me in college, but when they come before, it's kind of a waste of time because they're just not ready to hear this information yet. So the benefits of this process that I found in my clients are that they discover that learning and studying can actually be more fun and they feel more confident. Time goes by faster. Here, let me hold it this way. Time, when you're studying, doesn't drag, it goes faster. There's more of a sense of family togetherness because you all have a common vocabulary for how to talk about studying and learning. And then I can't promise A's, but in most of my clients, I've seen their grades go up at least a letter grade, if not more, on tests. So that's the benefit of this process that I'm going to be showing you today. So here's a bit of an agenda of where we're headed. I want to start with a bit of an orientation. I gave it at the very beginning, and I'm going to add a few more things. And then I have a little story to tell. And then we'll dive into the content that I promised in the emails, that one mind-numbing study habit that I suggest teenagers stop doing immediately. And then the 3 mistakes that I see adults, educators, and parents making that actually set kids up for academic struggles. And then 5 actions that you as families can take this summer to help set yourselves up for your best school year ever. A way that you can take it deeper. And then finally a Q&A at the very end for your questions. So that's where we're headed. Okay, so let's get oriented to this special space that we're in, this little box called a Google Hangout. I am going to be yakking quite a bit, but I also would love for you to be participating. And the place that you can do that is over in the chat. For me, it's over in that direction, but I don't know, for you, it might be in that direction. So actually, I'd love to just make sure the chat is working by having everyone say a little hello in it and tell me what city you're in and also what age group your kiddos are in. And actually, I also didn't welcome the teens and tweens, but if there are any of you watching, you are so welcome to. I'm talking to both you and your parents today. So, oh, you know what? I hadn't enabled my chat box yet. Now I have. Good. So there's one hello there. Others, please go ahead and type into the chat. What city are you in? What age group of a student are you working with? I'm going to give it a second because I don't see other people posting. And I'm wondering if that means the chat isn't fully working. So I'm going to let Megan play with that. Oh, there's Taryn. Oh, good. They're coming in. That's because of the lag. That's right. You're coming in. Okay, great. So the chat is working. Also, you'll notice a little tab that says polls. And if you click on that tab, you'll see that I've put a little question there that I want to explain. We'll be coming back to this question later, but I'd love for you all to take this poll now. I say here, imagine that I'm a friend of a friend, so you don't know me well, but you do know me, and we're going to go on a vacation together. And you're investing a great amount of time and money in this vacation. I'm the one planning it. And of course, you want to make it worth your while. So I give you 2 choices, and I want to know which choice you are more likely to choose. The first choice is, surprise! I'm not going to give you any details. Just come on the trip and trust me. And the second choice is, at some point in our 2 weeks, we're going to be on a beach for a while, and we'll also get a nice, vigorous mountain hike at some point, but we'll also be able to relax and be totally treated well at a spa. So which of these vacations do you think you're more likely to want to invest your time and money in? Just give a little click, and in maybe about 10 minutes, we'll see what the results are. Okay. Oh, yeah. And so before we truly get started, I want to introduce you to someone. So Megan, can you reveal yourself? I hear you.
Hi guys, I'm Megan. As Gretchen said, I'm going to be engaging with you guys in the chat, so if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in and I can give them to Gretchen at the end for question and answer. Also, I know some of you guys are saying that you can't see the poll, so I'm working with that right now. It should be under the chat public. If I'm working with it right now, if you cannot see it, please comment and I'll fix that as soon as I can.
Okay, and if for some reason the poll doesn't work, you can also just type into the chat what your thoughts are about that. Oh, Megan, show yourself one more time, please. One more time.
Shake it out.
Yeah, I want to shake it out a little bit. So I'm so excited to be here with you all, but I'm also a little nervous because I have so much to share and I want to make sure that I get it all in. And also, one of the things that I know is that moving is a really helpful when learning to get you into the state to really take in information. So I would like to invite everybody who's watching to try this with Megan and I, but just shake out an arm, please. There you go. And shake out your other arm. And I know we can't quite see it, but shake out your leg. I'm shaking my leg. And shake out your other leg. And shake out your whole body and your voice just for a second. Okay, and take a deep breath. Okay, thank you. I feel better and present and grounded and ready. So thanks, Megan. You can hide yourself again.
Bye, guys.
Okay, so I want to dive in. You know, when I first encountered this work, I expected that my expertise would be what helped me work well with students around powerful studying. I thought, you know, oh, I have a master's in education. I've trained with one of the best academic coaches in the Bay Area. I've, you know, now at this point had over 1,000 hours of one-on-one coaching with teenagers. Like, this is where my expertise comes from. But actually, when I really think about it, everything that I know about powerful studying came out of an experience I had in my 20s when my dear friend and roommate at the time made a bet with me. And the situation was that I was going back to school to become a teacher, actually. And I was taking a psychology class at the time, and I was overwhelmed. I was working full-time, and then I had this class at night, and I was that first kind of student, that type 1, this one. I was totally this person, such a perfectionist, and I was going crazy. And my roommate said, hey, Gretchen, why don't you just make a C? You know, it's fine. Why, don't go for the A. Just make a C. And that freaked me out. I thought, no way could I make a C. That's too scary. And she pushed and pushed and said, you know, I'm going to take you out for dinner if you make the C. And I'm always one to take on a challenge. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll do this. I can do this. I can make a C. And I made a crucial error. And I made a plan for making a C. And what I know now is that students who tend to be C students don't make plans, and that's one of the things I, as their academic coach, help them with, is to develop the neural pathways for planning and following through with plans. But anyway, here was my plan for how to make a C. Don't study. Don't read the textbook. And don't review my notes. 3 things that I was very good at doing as a straight A student that I didn't allow myself to do. And what I noticed happening, which was super interesting, is I started developing some strategies. So for example, here, let me get a little higher here so you can see. I learned how to make a quick little study sheet. So I actually did study, but I only studied for 10 minutes. And I read through my notes, made a study sheet with pictures on it, because as you can tell, I'm a highly visual person, and that's all I did to study. I also read the textbook backwards. And again, I only let myself do it in 10 minutes, read it backwards, paid attention to all of the pictures and all of the bolded words, and that was it. And then when I was taking notes, what I used to do as a perfect straight A student is write down absolutely everything that the teacher said and told myself I'd review it and memorize it later. But since I wasn't allowed to do that as a C student, I had to really do a good job taking notes. And I made clumps of information, as you can see here. I connected information from one part of my notes to another with arrows. I was so active and so busy. So these things, these processes, actually, as you can imagine, made me get an A rather than a C. And actually, I even wrote a paper at the end where I explained this whole experiment to my professor, and he loved it, and he gave me an A on the paper as well. So I never got that dinner from my friend. But I did save so much time. I ended up having a life, and I ended up learning even more effectively than I would have with my previous straight A, work hard, cram that information into my head strategies. So this story I often tell my clients, and all the work that I do with them is based on how can we kind of hack your study process? How can we find fun and interesting and active things for you to do that save you time and have you feeling like it's fun and engaging? One of the things that I know is true about my clients and most human beings is that we have some basic human needs. We want to feel like we're being effective. We want to feel like we're competent, and we want to feel like we're fully alive. But actually, when our kids are studying, we feel the opposite of this. Kids often feel ineffective. They often feel incompetent, and they often feel totally bored. And so my hope is to help kids find their own strategies so that they are moving to this space when they're studying and learning. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. Okay, thank you, Megan, for dealing with, I'm noticing there were a few technical glitches. So thanks, everyone, for working with that. Okay, I hope that many of you saw the video that I posted earlier in the week about why studying is such a sucky word. And I want to start there. You know, kids hear the word study, 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 study all the time. Teachers tell them, make sure you study for the test. And parents check in, have you studied? Have you studied? And kids will respond, you know, yeah, I'm studying, or, you know, I don't need to study, I know it already. But either way, we're throwing this word around without actually communicating anything of value to each other. And that's one of the things I want to change. I would say everyone stop using the word study, except that that's kind of impossible to do. That we can add additional words and additional questions to our language when we're either talking to our kids about studying, or students when you are talking to your parents or teachers about what you're doing to study. So I promised you that I would tell you the one mind-numbing study habit that everyone should stop doing immediately. And I'm going to tell you that right now. Most of my clients, when I ask them, you know, how do you study for your tests, will tell me, what do you mean? I review my notes. That's what they say. I review my notes. And I then ask them, well, show me what that looks like. And usually what I get is something like this. And I let them sit there for a while. and I wait to see if they're going to move at all. And usually they don't. Like, this is what studying looks like. And that's what I want people to stop doing. I want you to stop sitting still while you're studying. That is mind numbing. And then there's another piece too. I wrote here, stop starting at the very beginning. And what I mean by that is most people, and you know, as adults, I bet most of you listening do this too. When there's something you read or you need to read, you turn to the front page and you start reading from the very top, and you just continue reading. And that actually is a very brain unfriendly way to study. And this is where our poll comes in. So, Megan, I don't know if the poll was working, but if it is, why don't you go ahead and close it, and let's see. And let's see how people answered. I think I also saw in the chat that some people were choosing, Bobby, I see you chose A. Laura is choosing B. Bobby, I need B, but I want A. A, B, 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 A, B, 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 B. Okay. So most of you are choosing B, the vacation where I tell you a few things about what you're going to do. And so the brain is just like that. The brain, when you're sitting to read a story or to review your notes for a test, the brain wants to know an itinerary of where it's going. It's a little scary to jump in and be like, I'll just go wherever you're going to go. Even though I'm investing all this time and money, I'm going to trust you. It's hard for the brain to make that decision. And so there's always a little anxiety, even if it might, on the vacation example, feel kind of exciting to go without an itinerary. There's also a little anxiety, like what's going to happen next. And that anxiety is bad for learning and for remembering information. Actually, what's helpful for the brain is to have a little bit of an itinerary about where you're going. So if my tip is to stop starting at the beginning, or I mean, that's what I'm telling you to stop doing. What I'd like teens to start doing is flipping through the notes, taking a look, going, oh, how many pieces do I need to look at here? Or how many subjects is this author in this textbook talking about, and what do I already know about this? And oh, look, that's something I'm kind of curious about. And giving yourself a little direction for where you're headed. Once you've given your brain an itinerary, it's easier for it to be willing to relax and go along the journey of reading and reviewing your notes step by step. So that's tip number one. I encourage you to put any questions in the chat if you have them about this. I'm going to be taking all of the questions at the end because it's easier for me to focus if I'm ignoring the chat and working and talking directly to you. But if you have any questions about this starting at the beginning and sitting still issue, now would be a great time to jot them down, and Megan will make sure to ask them at the end of our time. Okay, so I just talked to teenagers about what I'd like you to stop and start doing. Now I want to look at the grown-ups. And I mentioned that we'd look at 3 different mistakes that adults make. So here's mistake number 1. We say study and review far too much. And we also let our kids say study and review as if it's meaningful. So I actually did this for my first 3 years as an academic coach. I would ask kids, what are you going to do to study for the test? And they'd say, oh, I'm going to review my notes. And I'd go, great, good, you got a plan. And it took me a while to realize that is not a plan at all, because review, it's actually kind of a passive word. Like, that could look like so many different actions. And so it's a mistake for adults to hear that as an answer and not to follow up with more specific questions. The second mistake is for adults to tell kids strategies like, hey, do it this way, without explaining why that strategy works. And so this is why that's a mistake. I've had many parents tell me, oh, I used to study by doing this or by that, and that really worked well for me. My kid should be doing that, right? Or also, I've had even many tutors of my clients giving kids specific strategies to try. And even teachers will tell kids, will give kids a worksheet. And actually, they won't tell the kids that this is a way to study. They're just like, do this worksheet. And what kids don't understand or aren't invited to think about is, why do certain strategies work at certain times but don't work at other times? Like, what is good learning in the first place? What does it look like actually in the brain when we're learning? And how can I choose the right strategies for the right occasions? Too often, education has become adult tells the kid something and the kid does what the adult says without thinking. So command, response, command, response. And that can get pretty boring and tedious and doesn't actually invite the kids to think about their own thinking. And that's something that I think even on an elementary school level, kids can start to do. So this leads into mistake number 3. I made my cards a little bit too long. So I don't know if you can tell, but my little doodle here is supposed to be a teenager on its knees, kind of doing this. I can't do without you. Please help me, help me. And this one is actually related specifically to tutors. It seems like it's a direction that education is moving in right now for kids to have more and more and more tutors. Like struggling with Spanish, get a Spanish tutor. Struggling with math, get a math tutor. And for the most part, I do think my clients benefit from having tutors, even though I also do have some critiques of the tutoring process. But here's what drives me, just up the wall, is when I'm sitting in a session with one of my teen clients and they say, yeah, I got a math test coming up next week. And I go, oh, great, let's make a study plan. And then my student says, I don't need to make a plan for this. I'm going to be meeting with my tutor a couple times, and my tutor will just give me some practice problems. That drives me crazy, because the student is just turning off their brain and doing that thing that I said in the last mistake. They're just following adults' instructions, and they're not being asked to think about their own thinking. And we create a dependency on tutors. And for some reason, I'm noticing most tutors don't seem to talk to kids about how they can study on their own in between tutoring sessions. And I guess that's why many people hire me as an academic coach, because that's what I do. But wouldn't parents be saving so much money, and wouldn't kids be learning even better if tutors just added this to their regimen? So parents, this would be a quick little tip, that if you are hiring a tutor for a subject, actually, before you bring that tutor on, ask them this question in an interview. Ask them, like, what are you going to expect of my child in between sessions? How do you help my child become an independent learner so that they know how to study for this subject by themselves? That would be a great question to ask. And if a tutor doesn't have an answer for that, then I would keep on looking until you find a tutor who really knows how to balance their content expertise with helping a kid become more and more of an independent learner. Alrighty. So those were the 3 mistakes that I said adults can tend to make, and I made them too at the very beginning of my teaching and coaching practice. I'm going to just run through them quickly in case you want to throw up any questions in the chat about them. This is the overusing the words study and review. The telling kids what strategies to use without actually teaching them how to choose for themselves what will help their learning. And then finally, creating dependency on tutors, or sometimes even, parents, getting help from parents as well. Great. So those are the mistakes. Now, let's look at the actions that you as families can take this summer to help set everyone, kids and parents up alike, for your best school year ever, which is what I wish for you. Action number 1, know your brain. And then this little dude here is just saying neural pathways. So more and more studies are coming out showing that the more kids actually understand about what's happening up here, the better they perform in school, and the more longer term their performance lasts through college. So I now make sure that all of my clients understand what a neural pathway is. What are neurons? How do our brains learn? How do you make a stronger and stronger and stronger neural pathway? And I'm noticing that once the kids kind of get what's happening, they are able to understand the strategies that I teach them better and better. So there are all kinds of ways you can do this. You can do Google searches. You can. There are some books about the brain, and of course, I'm going to be sharing with you later a way that I'm going to be providing that I think is fun. I have a metaphor that I share with kids called the Indiana Jones metaphor. That helps them understand how neural pathways are made. We go on a trip through the jungle together. I'll tell you more about that later. The second action involves understanding what I call the study senses. Let me hold this up closer for a second. And this is seeing information, hearing information, speaking information, and moving with information. And the more you understand the importance of all of these activities, and learning is not just one of them, learning is all of these activities, then you're able to find more active strategies rather than the passive sitting, waiting for information to come into your brain strategies. There are both study senses. And then you can also do something that I train my clients and the kids in my anti-boring approach program to think like a teacher, to actually think like, oh, what is the objective of this lesson? And what am I supposed to be able to know or do at the end of it? And how can I prove to myself that I can do, or that I know the information my teacher needs me to know? The more kids can think like a teacher and use these active strategies that include the study senses, the faster they're going to learn. And actually, I'm noticing with my clients that after about a year of this process, it's almost like they gain a fluency, like they don't have to stop and think about how to study for tests. They just naturally know, oh, it's this kind of test, then I need to do this kind of study strategy, boom, 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 and it's fairly easy. Oh yeah, I forgot. I wanted to tell you a quick little story about one of my clients. My first Skype client, a young woman named Roberta, was a 7th grader. This was several years ago. And she was just not doing well at school. She just couldn't get motivated to do any of her work. And one of the reasons she couldn't get motivated is she really thought that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to sit. You're supposed to read over things, and that's it. After we worked together, and this is a drama student, I should add, she, like, her eyes lit up one session. She was like, oh my God. Like, I could invite a couple of my friends over a few nights before the test, and we could make up a game show, and we could do the game show together, and that's studying? And that was her idea, by the way, not mine. And I said, yes, are you quizzing yourself with a game show? Yeah. Are you seeing information? Yeah, depending on how you work the game show. Are you hearing information? Definitely. Are you speaking information? Absolutely. And are you moving your body and moving information around? Absolutely. You're hitting a number of the study senses when you choose that strategy. And that just blew her mind. And she was just a different kid after that. Super excited for Roberta. Okay. So action number 3 is that adults can ask better questions. And this is whenever you're tempted to use the words study and review, you can bite your tongue, stop, and then ask a couple of my favorite questions. One of them is, what will you do to remember the key ideas? So rather than, are you studying, or what are you going to do to study? It's like, what are you going to do to remember the key ideas? And another question, and this is actually my favorite all-time question to ask students, is how will you know? How can you prove to yourself and to me that you are ready for the test and you can stop studying? Often when I first ask this question of my clients, they kind of stop dead and they're like, I don't know. How can I prove? What do you mean, prove? And then we start talking about, well, how do you quiz yourself? How can you make study sheets that have a quizzable format? How can you, this is coming back to thinking like a teacher. Again, how can you try and teach yourself in such a way that you give yourself a fake test so that are you going to get them all right? Are you only going to get part of them right? A lot of kids think that just, again, this reviewing, reading over the information is enough, but it's not actually studying unless you find ways to do some deliberate practice and prove to yourself that you're hitting the mark. So action number 4. Some of these things that I've been telling you so far are a little hard to do over the summer when there's not a lot of academic material happening, but that's where this comes in. If adults and kids can, if adults specifically can model some of these creative practices, and if they can help each other so that it's not just about kids are the only people who learn. Adults never learn. But actually, adults in the course of their jobs, there's so much learning. Maybe you have to read a long report that's boring, or maybe you have to take notes during a meeting, or maybe you have a presentation you have to give. And the more you can model, like, oh, yeah, I'm having trouble with this. Hey, kids, can we, those study senses that Gretchen talked about, could you help me brainstorm right now some ways to use the study senses to perhaps prepare for my talk? And actually, speaking of that, I did just that preparing for this one. I made all of these cute little cue cards, which I made because I thought they might help you remember some of the information, and frankly, I think it's more fun and interesting than PowerPoint. So I'm processing the information visually. I didn't do this one. What I should have done actually is made a recording of my talk and then take a walk and listen to it. I did, though, take a walk, which is moving, and I spoke it out loud while I was taking a walk. So I hit 3 of the 4 study senses in preparing for this talk. And I would just love to get reports of more and more dinner table conversations where the whole family is brainstorming together how to help someone, parent or kid, with having a more creative and a less boring approach to doing whatever kind of learning they need to do. Finally, action number 5. It's my attempt at drawing a supply closet. Spend the summer talking with each other about what kind of supplies do we need to have at home. So the minute we have a study idea that's creative and that uses one of the study senses, we can act on it immediately. We don't even have to wait to go to the store. I put some ideas down here, but I just think it would be super fun to have that be one of the missions this summer, is to collect a bunch of stuff. And parents of kindergartners and first and second and third graders have this kind of stuff around the house all the time. But we tend to not have it as much when kids get into middle school and high school. But that's when it's especially necessary to work hard to stay in our creativity. So, I suggested poster boards here. What did I say? Oh, yeah, a recording device. In fact, it occurred to me, I know anyone with a smartphone has recording devices, but maybe it would actually be more fun and anti-boring to haul out those old cassette recorders and actually make cassette tapes with vocabulary words or whatever it is kids need to remember. That might actually stick with a kid more than making a quick voice memo on your iPhone. It's super cool to have whiteboards around the house, even either a big one that can be on a wall or just small portable whiteboards that you can grab. I keep one actually under my coffee table, which is where I sit with my clients, so that there's something about a whiteboard and a whiteboard marker that kids perk up and they want to draw and erase, and I don't know, it just keeps you engaged more. Clay, markers, and then every household at the beginning of the school year should have, I think, just stacks and stacks of different sized note cards. You can also just have big pieces of cardstock, but the more flashcards you have around, the better. So I highly recommend this working together over the summer to bring the supplies together. And just a quick story about that, and we are wrapping up. We're wrapping up and getting ready for our Q&A. But I have an adult client who is 24 and is just coming to terms with his ADHD. And he's just a wonderful client because he's ready. He's finally ready. And he had a huge taxonomy, a wildlife taxonomy he had to memorize. And so he got a bunch of those cards and blue tape and took his entire dorm room wall and covered it with the taxonomy. I don't have a picture of it, but with lines for the tape and then the different species and the different subspecies. And that's how he worked on memorizing this really hard to memorize thing. Now, he had to go out and buy those supplies, but just imagine in the moment, if you have the supplies at home, it just makes it that much easier to act. Okay, so lastly, actually, I have a bonus number 6, which is going to lead into how we can take this deeper. Sometimes parents are just not enough anymore, especially as kids are in upper middle school and high school, and sometimes it can be helpful to find a mentor. It could just be a family friend, or employ a coach, someone like myself, to build that relationship and take away the nagging role of parents and let you just kind of back off and be loving mom and dad while another adult takes over. So that's also something to keep in the back of your mind. And to that end, this brings me to how to go deeper. If you think that all of these ideas make a lot of sense, but might be time-consuming for you to do on your own, and you would like just to walk through my program, I have, and I'm launching on June 15th, the summer edition of the Anti-Boring Approach to Powerful Studying. And Megan, you can go ahead and put that pop in into our chat window now. The summer program, it consists of 6 different lessons that basically walk you through everything I talked about here. We start with looking at your brain and understanding neural pathways and doing that Indiana Jones metaphor that I mentioned. Then we go very deeply into the study senses, and we learn to do something I call verberizing, and we end it with this huge list of verbs and study strategies. Then we go more deeply into understanding how to make your note-taking active. We then learn about how to think like a teacher and make a backwards plan. And then finally, how to take action. This is the anti-procrastination part of the summer program. It's how to set up accountability systems and time management and organization systems that are going to support you in taking action. And all of this is done on a website with videos of, they're all under 3 minutes, of me sharing some information, working with my little cards, and then providing an activity that students can do. And actually, I highly recommend that parents work through this program with your kiddos, because this is a way for you to create a joint language together so that you can have those dinner table conversations where mom and dad ask the kids to brainstorm a problem at work, or where the kids ask to brainstorm, and so that you can ask follow-up questions that your kids understand how to answer without just rolling their eyes back at you, although they might do that anyway. So the summer program, the normal price of it is $295, but I have a special webinar price that is $195, and actually, that's going to last for 24 hours. So if you, I think, let me just make sure. I don't see it on my screen, but yeah, there it is. Okay. So you guys should see right now the on the chat side of the window, the Anti-Boring Approach to Powerful Studying link. If you sign up within the 24 hours, you get that early bird price of $100 off. And if you sign up before the end of this webinar, I'm so excited that so many of you are here. I will also offer you a $50 off coupon for anything else that you might choose to get from me in the future. So for example, if you decided you also wanted to get a few hours of one-to-one coaching to help support you during the summer, then your $50 off coupon would go towards that. Last thing I want to say, and then I'm going to open it up for the Q&A. So Megan, you can start getting those questions ready for me. So I just want to share with you some of the things that the people who did the beta version of the Anti-Boring Approach said. I launched it in a very quiet way this spring. So one of them said, "I like how you focus on the student being in charge while studying. I never thought of it like that." Another one said, "I'm allowed to be creative. If I don't find the teaching style meaningful, I can teach myself." Loved that one. And then finally, "Our 9th grade daughter's stress level has lessened considerably, and she has not had any meltdowns since she started working with the strategies Gretchen devised." So that makes me super happy. I was someone who had a number of meltdowns when I was a kid. I know how bad they feel. And I'm so glad that this family experienced that. So I want to thank everyone for being here. I'm sure that there are some questions either about any of these tips or about how the Anti-Boring Approach to Powerful Studying is going to work this summer. So Megan, if you want to reappear, you can start letting me know what questions were in the chat window.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. So we have a few questions. First off, from Laura and Tahiti. They both were wondering what other words they should use instead of studying.
Yeah, and that's where it all, this is a conversation that should happen with you and your student. And you still have to use the word study. You know, it's the only word we have in the English language. But you can follow it up with, how are you going to study? And I bet that you guys were asking that question before I introduced the study senses. So one way that you can follow that up with your kid is by saying, just by literally walking them through it. What might you do to see the information visually or process it visually? What might you do to hear the information? What might you do to speak the information out loud? What can you do to move your body or move the information? And again, in the anti-boring approach this summer, I will walk families through a number of exercises so that you actually will end with a little poster you can put on your wall of, I think some kids had over 10 to 15 different verbs and study strategies that they figured out would work for them. Cool, I hope that answers your question. What's next, Megan?
Tahiti also was wondering, what are some examples that can go into the study plan that are not review or study?
Mm-hmm.
So some other alternatives.
Yeah, and I think that goes with the same thing that I just said, walking them through the study senses. And I would actually have you sit down with your student or ask me to sit down with them and walk them through the senses and brainstorm together. Like, what can we do that, like just drawing pictures of your notes work for you? Or, I mean, there are so many things, and it really depends specifically on what the student's interests and natural skills are too. For singing, does turning something into a song work for you? I'm also happy to brainstorm offline.
Awesome. So Gwen has a Spanish class, I believe, and she says that her students often use Quizlet and find it very helpful, and she was wondering what your thoughts were about digital tools such as Quizlet.
Oh, I love that question, Gwen. I love it. Quizlet works really well in a very specific capacity, and that is that Quizlet allows you to memorize discrete, like, words and definitions, and then it also, and this is the thing that I love about it, it allows you to practice in the manner of the test. So if you know that a test is going to be multiple choice or matching, and this is what it means to think like a teacher, right? Ugh, my headphones are just not staying in my ears today. If you're thinking like a teacher, you're like, oh, the test is going to have multiple choice, so I should actually practice in a multiple choice kind of a way, and Quizlet allows me to do that. So it works for certain kinds of tests. The problem with Quizlet, and for those of you who don't even know what this is, just Google Quizlet.com and you'll see. The problem with it is because it's digital, kids can get distracted by other digital, by going to Facebook, or they can also think that just clicking, like going through the flashcards and clicking, is learning. But unfortunately, you're not actually really moving your body or moving or manipulating the information. Kids don't tend to speak out loud when they're using Quizlet. They don't actually really get to hear the information. So if they're using Quizlet, I would be asking them to use other strategies as well.
Perfect. So let's see. Sarah Hamilton is wondering if you're on LinkedIn.
I am on LinkedIn, Sarah, but I don't use it all that much. But I am there, and I think just under Gretchen Wegner and academic coach.
Perfect. Taryn is asking, when are the sessions for the program? So, for example, the days, times, etc.
Yes. Oh my God. And I just realized I left out something super important about the summer program. So it's totally self-paced. So once you're in, there are about, depending on how long it takes you, 4 to 6 hours worth of videos and activities to work through at your own pace. But I will also be having Q&A sessions every couple weeks, so people can show up in a format like this, but you might have video too, and ask me questions, and we can work through problems or issues you're having. And also, and I'm so excited by this, I can't believe I forgot to say it earlier. This is like the best part of the whole thing. I have invited a number of my colleagues who are experts in areas that I am not an expert in to do a Q&A interview with people participating in the anti-boring approach to powerful studying. So I wanted to introduce you to these people really quickly. There's Julie. See, I made little things. Speaking of having the right tools around. And Julie's a parent coach who specializes in the teen to tween transition. So she'll be talking to you a little bit more about some parenting issues that come up around studying and homework. And Megan will be doing a Q&A around college admission and test prep, ACT and SAT for the high school folks. Melissa is an expert in the college admission process for people with complex learning issues, so ADHD and various learning disabilities. So I know that many of you have that situation and might like to talk to someone one-on-one. Beth was actually the person who trained me, and so she's a veteran academic coach and also specializes in the legalities of 504 and IEPs, so she'll be available. And finally, Joe, he is a physics professor and an author of a book on accelerated learning, and he's going to be available as well for a Q&A. Taryn's specific question about schedule, I actually haven't put together exactly when they're going to be. I wanted to see who's going to register first, and then I'll be sending out a poll where we put together a schedule for the interviews that work for people. But the short answer now, the summary, is that the summer course is self-paced, so you can work at it on your own. And there will be every couple weeks through the summer either a Q&A with me or a Q&A with one of my groups of experts here.
Awesome. So we have a few more questions. Chris was wondering, which is a really excellent question, what is active note-taking?
Oh, Chris, that's such a good question. And it is such a long answer. And so for that, I'd encourage you to sign up for the anti-boring approach to powerful studying. But what I can say here in a short amount of time is it's the opposite of mindlessly writing down everything the teacher is saying. So active note-taking is a process of, it's like, there's a way, I talk to my clients and they seem to get this, where you can like turn up the volume of your brain's ability to think and you start listening to your teachers in a different way. And you start taking notes either during the lecture or after the lecture in ways that have you processing the information using the study senses, so visually, or for kids who are more auditory, turning them into auditory notes on their iPod. I mean, there are so many ways to process it that I will walk people through, but it is that process of actively turning up the volume and making sure you're not just being a mindless listener.
Awesome. Thank you, Gretchen. Kelly, for her job, has to learn a lot of content and memorize a lot. And she's wondering, she's saying that the content that she has to learn is from online sources and can be very difficult for her to absorb. And she's wondering what strategies could help with that.
Oh, man. So there's more and more research coming out that shows that content in online sources gets processed in our brains differently than content on paper. So Kelly, I feel ya. It's not just you, it's like your humanity. I would have you do more processing of the information bit by bit. So if you have to read it online, read a section online and then take yourself away from online. Maybe have a notebook, maybe have a huge whiteboard in your office, or have, you could do it in a Microsoft Word document, but that stays digital and I don't love that. Where you, like every page or every few pages, turn away from the digital, process the information in some kind of way that works for you physically, you know, making charts, drawing pictures, and once you feel like you've captured the main idea or the salient points of what you've just read in a short summarized version, come back to your reading so that you're taking turns.
Awesome. And so we have no more questions. So if anybody has any more questions, please go into the chat and ask. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Awesome. Well, I'm going to say goodbye right now, and then I'm going to stay on for just a little bit longer in case any more questions come up. And Megan, if you could stay on too, that would be great. But I just want to thank you all so much for your insightful questions, for your presence here. And to those of you who are watching the recording, I want to say a special shout out to you. Encourage folks to listen to it again with your tweens and teens if they weren't present. And please follow up with me if you have any additional questions. And of course, please, if you're moved, sign up for the summer course, and we'll work on the schedule a little bit later. I'm just following the chat to see if there's anything popping up. Oh, I do see, Ellie, I don't know if you're still around, but you have a question, what were the dates again? The course is going to be live from June 15th to August 15th. So it's going to be live for 2 months. So there's plenty of time around summer activities and vacations to work through the 6 hours of activities, and then to also participate in the Q&As. And even if you miss a Q&A, you know, there's plenty of time to catch up. Any other questions? Do I have a regular website? I just saw that. Yes, I do. That's a great question. My regular website is my name, so GretchenWegner.com, and I'll actually put that in the chat right now. So funny, the silly things we missed. I should have given that to you guys earlier. GretchenWegner.com. You know what? I will also add that once people have signed up for the anti-boring approach to powerful studying, if you want to add on some coaching with me, if you're one of those parents that's like, I think my kid actually needs to work with a non-parent person on this, then I am available. There will be some one-to-one coaching, and I will announce those to folks once you've already signed up for the main course. Oh, thanks, Ellie. I'm glad you're excited. Yay. Is that how you say your name? I don't even know if that's how you say your name. You're welcome, Melissa. Oh, Kelly has a question. Would my studying strategies summer course help you? You know, I actually think it would. It is designed for adults. I actually have several graduate students who are going to be working through it this summer as well. Kelly, you could either send me an email, or I know you have my phone number. You could call me and you could tell me a little bit more about the kinds of data that you are processing in your work. And and then I can give you a more specific answer about. But I actually think it would, and I could actually post specific activities for adults who are processing this at work. You're welcome, Sarah Hamilton. Thanks for showing up. Oh, yay. And Linda wrote that she was having audio difficulties, but you signed up. So yay, I'm so glad. That's exciting. The other thing about the online version is when kids post activities, I'll be in there following up and commenting on the activities. So it's a great way to get some experience from a coach without the cost of one-to-one coaching. It's one reason why I've created this program, actually, is I'm starting to have all of my one-to-one hours during the school year be full, but I still wanted to be of service to folks. So especially at this $195 cost, it's like this super deal to have over over 12 hours of one-to-one time. Well, it's not quite one-to-one, but of direct contact with me for only $195. Okay, I think we're going to close this. It looks like the questions have slowed down. So again, thank you so much, everybody. The link will be coming to you shortly for the recording, and I wish everyone your best summer ever and your best school year ever. So take care. Bye-bye.